Welcome to Sormag's Writers Cafe, where we share the real writer's life over a cup of friendship, sprinkled with laughter and wisdom. My name is LaShaunda Hoffman, and I'm your host. This episode's sponsor is Sormag Promotions. Promotion can sometimes be a heavy burden that authors believe they have to do alone. Sormag Promotion is here to help you with your book promotion. We can do daily, weekly, and weekend promotions to get you and your books in front of the reader. Add us to your promotion plan, and we can help you stay consistent with your book promotion. We also promote literary services and events. Check out the link in the show notes for more information. Sormag Promotion. Promotion is what we do. Welcome to the Sormag Writers Cafe. Sitting at the cafe with me today is Kamyra L. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here today.
Today is Kamyra's release day for her book. Happy release day. Woo.
Yay. Thanks.
It'll be probably a couple of weeks before you hear this, but this is her official release day, so I wanted to recognize that. Kamyra, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you write, and hopefully give us a little snippet of the new book?
Sure. My name is Kamyra L. I wear a couple of hats. I call my work professional life patchwork quilt professional life. So a little patch of this, a little patch of that. I am the content manager for Your Team for Parents magazine, and we are all over these interwebs. We have every social media platform. We have we used to be a print magazine. We are now completely online. So our website, Your Team for Parents Mag, is where you'll find all of our helpful articles. We're online live every Monday through Friday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Each day is a different focus. Tuesdays are my days. So Tuesdays with Kamyra, I interview people. I have conversations with people who have an experience or an expertise that would be helpful for adults who are raising teens. So that's one of my patchwork quilts. The other one is I am the Try Hard Mommy. That is my online persona, and it is what I am, a writer, a humorist in the mommy sphere. My youngest is now 18, so I'm getting ready to age into a different part of this. But I started it when I started having kids, and I realized that there weren't diverse voices in the mommy sphere. There was a lot of good stuff happening, in the 90s and the early aughts, but it was all from a particular lens. So I started writing and providing a safe place for people to have conversations having to do with families and raising children and anything. It evolves. Sometimes we talk about social issues on my Facebook page or such. I've even had clubhouses where people have come and talked. I pride myself in providing a safe place to have these discussions and to laugh at ourselves, too. I laugh at myself a lot. I used to do, I have contributed to a couple of anthologies. One of them is called Mom's Night Out. Even inmates get time off for good behavior. And the other more recent one is called the Parenting Odyssey, Trials, Treasures, and Triumphs of Parenting in a Pandemic. And this week I have released my first solo project. It's called Eavesdropping, Family Fun. And it is a compilation of conversations that I've either overheard, because I'm a great eavesdropper, I've participated in, or I've made up because I have a wild imagination. I used to post these online as the Try Hard Mommy and also on my personal Facebook pages and other social media accounts, and people kept saying, you should put these together in a book. You should put these together in a book. And I was like, yeah, I'll get to that. And I finally gotten to it, and I have put them together in a 3-book series. And this first one is the Family Fun series, and it's a lot of small conversations that people have in families, ranging from anything, brothers talking about sex, to some ongoing scenarios in my personal life. I had hair wars with one of my sons who just refused to do his hair, and it was an ongoing battle. And he won most of the battles, so I guess but I won the war eventually. Puberty helped me out a bit. And lotion wars. I had a son who just refused to use lotion, and I was like, you can't do that. But they're funny conversations that we've had over the course of time, or things that I've overheard. I'm real big on overhearing things. So if something seems familiar, maybe I was standing behind you in line and heard your conversation.
I'm over here laughing because I have boys, and I had those hair wars, lotion wars, and the one that has been the hardest is the deodorant wars.
Oh, yes. Fortunately, my husband, for some reason, the deodorant one really got him, so he had that war. I was like, oh, good, I'm spared.
Oh, Lord, no. The last one he just doesn't, I think when he went to high school, he got it. He's like, oh, he called me one time, hey, Mom, can you bring me some deodorant to school, please? And I was like, I was laughing so hard because I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to be that mom that take you some deodorant. And then he called me back. I got deodorant. It's in my book bag. Because I bought him a stick, and I'm like, put it in your book bag. Because, I said, the last thing you want is to be funky at school.
And we know these times will pass. We know they'll pass, and those of us who have multiple children we can guarantee ourselves they'll pass. But you still go into the depths of it, right? Mm-hmm. You're still going to do the battle over the hair and the deodorant and heaven forbid, the cleaning of the room.
Oh, my goodness. I never thought about cleaning the room because I have a junky room. So I can't see me telling them to clean up their room when my room looks like I'm trying to went through it 3 or 4 times. Every other weekend I'll go and start cleaning my room, and they'd be like, okay, I guess it's for us to clean our room. But it was one of the things that I learned when I took a communication class, and the guy told me, he said, there are some battles that you fight and some battles that you don't. And he goes, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I learned that with my husband and with my children. Some people are like, I need them to make their beds every day, and I'm like, that's not on my agenda. If they want to make up their bed, they can. If they don't have to. But a lot of stuff that I stopped doing is because when I was in the military, that was one of the things in the military. I got really lax when I got out the military because I was like, I am never going to tell somebody to make their bed every day. And I did that. My children, it's something my mother, different things like my mother used to say, well, she's from a different generation. She was like, you give them too many choices. You don't get choices when you're a kid. And I say that's how come my kids get choices, because I remember that, not having a choice. I was like, what do you guys want for dinner? No, you just fix them dinner. This is how we used to eat liver. I hated liver. And she'd go, but you liked liver. I'm like, no, I didn't. So, yeah. Right. Did you want to read an excerpt of one?
Sure, I'll read you one short one, and then if we have time, I can read you a different feel for a different one. So this one is, the scene is a mother, and this actually happened, not to me, but to someone else. The scene is a mother preparing her 11-year-old daughter for an amusement park field trip. The mom says, put your money in several places, like your wallet, pocket, and shoes. That way you can't lose all of it. And daughter says, how about I put some in my bra? Mom, not there. Find another spot. I can do it. See? And the girl stuffs the bills into her unlined preteen sports bra. The mom's hopelessly trying not to laugh at the paper outline showing through the child's shirt. And then she looks at her daughter and she says, not yet, baby. In 10 years, you'll be good to go. But why can't I keep it up here? And the mom looks at her and says, for starters, you need underwire to stop it from slipping out. Ew, never mind. So that's an excerpt of just a little everyday conversation that happened. And we laugh at it, but when you read it as a group, everyone goes, oh, my God, I had something like that when either I was the daughter or I was the mother. I have another one that is a different vein. It is also mother and daughter. but it's a kitchen table conversation between a mother and her adult daughter. And it starts with the daughter, and she says, I'm seeing a therapist. You're dating one? No, I'm a patient. For what? Did something happen to you? No, Ma, I just need someone to talk to. You can talk to me or your friends. Why pay someone? Are you lonely? I need a professional. Why? There's nothing wrong with you. I've been feeling a certain way for a while, and I want to do something about it. What are you talking about? I feel as if I have an aura of negativity. I'm trying to embrace positivity, learn how to be open, even vulnerable to love. If that's what you want, how's it going? Well, I'm making progress. It'd be helpful if you came to a few sessions. Could you do that? Why? I don't need a shrink. I don't need a stranger to tell me what I already know. Spend your money that way if you want. Ma, with all due respect, I'm not the only negative person in this room. It's learned behavior. What are you trying to say? Cut to the chase. I'm saying that we both can benefit from sessions. It will strengthen our relationship and help us to have better connections with other people. My connections are just fine. Really? You're twice divorced, have friendships based in hardship. We both confuse harshness with strength. That affects all of our relationships. What are you talking about? You know what? Never mind. I don't need to indulge this craziness. I have more important things to do today. Please think about it, Ma. It's not your fault. You were raised by a distant, single mom. She did a lot of good things. Teaching you how to give and receive love was not one of them. It wasn't her fault. She couldn't teach what she didn't know. As a result, you never learned and couldn't teach me. Dad tried, but together we were too much negativity for him. If he's so wonderful, why doesn't he sit on the crazy couch with you? He's the one who recommended Dr. Sullivan. He drove me to my first session and waited in the lobby while I was in the office. How brave of him. Did you hear yourself? That's what I'm talking about. We don't have to hold these thoughts and feelings. There's another, happier way to live. Well, what is all this self-help nonsense? Life isn't about frolicking around happy. What if it could be? So those are two very different examples, but they're both mother-daughter conversations.
That was really good, especially during this time, because we have so many people who, the stigma is not to get help. Like the mother's like, I don't need any help. She don't even know she needs help. She doesn't even realize that she's negative, and that's really sad. What inspired this? I know you said this was part of your blogging, but what inspired it? Why did you decide to start doing that?
So when I was a kid, my father and I used to see people, and we would imagine what their conversation was, or we would make up their persona for them, or we would see people across the street talking, and we'd be like, oh, she's saying this, or he's saying that, and he really made a game of it. And I continued doing it, and I used to do it with my sons when they were very little. They grew out of it a lot quicker than I did. I never grew out of it. So it was natural for me. And when I started writing books, and I have a whole bunch of books that are in various stages of unfinished, whenever I needed a break or to cleanse a palate, or I was having some kind of writer's block, I would just have these conversations, because that's how most of my stories start. They start as conversations, a bunch of conversations, and then I weave in the rest of it, the narrative, the description, and everything. So conversations are just something that come to me naturally.
I think you're the first author who ever told that to me. That's how my books come to me, as conversations. And even my dragon story, he was talking. So, that's how he woke me up one day and, hey, come in the bathroom and write me down. So it's interesting when you said that. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a kindred spirit, because most people that stuff doesn't come to me in conversations, and that's how I do. The conversation comes, and then I have to layer it and all the other stuff in there with it. So that's interesting. I have a question for you, because you were, writing for your magazine and stuff. What difference do you see between a writer and an author? Because you went from writer and then you went to author. What do you think is the difference?
Like, for example, a writer of articles and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's, yeah, as opposed to the passion art author, book author.
Mm-hmm.
The article stuff is very, it's very mission driven, right? You have to you have an assignment, you have to write an article on a specific thing, or you're answering a question or meeting a need of some sort. So it's really targeted for you. And it's shorter and it's quicker, and usually somebody else is dependent upon it, right? So you have a deadline because it needs to be published, or somebody's dependent upon it, or maybe it's time sensitive because you're writing an essay on something, on a current event or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think of an author, especially like a novelist or something, that's a long-term solo kind of project that you can really get lost in, or you can, because unless you have a publishing contract with dates, et cetera, you can really get yourself tangled up in it, either doing too much or not enough, because there's nobody on the other end saying, I need this from you and I need it by this time. Or, you know, you're not afraid that it's going to no longer be valid because it's not a current event topic.
Yeah, I think
that
I'm listening to what you're saying, and I started writing before I started doing nonfiction writing, but I was published in nonfiction writing. So when, you know, those books are still in the closet, because it was kind of like you said, you don't have a deadline. You can just I always wrote when I felt like writing. I didn't have a schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do anything. I just let the muse hit me when I want to hit. And at that time, when I started writing, we didn't really have any African American books, the romances, and so I was like, you know, I'm just writing for myself, and you know, maybe one day. And then one day it was open, and I was like, oh, I can't, it's nothing, and I'm freaking out. You know, so it's taken me a while to get to the point back to the confidence of submitting something to something, but I never call myself a writer when I was doing the nonfiction stuff, you know, and I said I write, but I never I'm a writer. Yep. You know, because I always thought that. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think that writers are like what you said. You were a writer. You write. Writers write, but I think in the general public thinks of authors as being published, right? An author is officially published. You can be a writer and have a closet full of things that nobody else sees and still be a writer.
Yeah, it took me a minute to get that title and acknowledge that title, that I was a writer. You know, especially when I had my own magazine, and I was like, well, I'm not a writer, but you know, you're thinking, well, when I think of writer, I was putting writer and author together, but you don't have to be an author to be a writer. You know, and so it took me a minute to catch that. And sometimes when some people are like, well, I talk to people and they're like, well, I'm not an author, but I say, but you're a writer. But no, I'm not published. I say, but you're a writer. They like, no, they think that they have to be published. You know, it's like, no, you can write. You know, for years and years, but you don't have to be an author to stop being. You know, that doesn't take the title of writer away.
Yeah, it's like being a musician. You don't have to have a recording contract to be a musician.
Oh, I love that. That's definitely, yeah, I think it's easier to say you're a musician than it is to be a writer, I guess, sometimes, because sometimes I guess some musicians don't get paid. They might not. They might just play, you know, gigs just to be playing, you know, get some, you know. What advice would you give a writer working on their first book?
Working on your first book, there are two things. Don't go for perfection. Your first draft is just to get everything out of your head. Don't worry about the quality of your first draft, which is really hard for me. So when I give you this advice, I'm also talking to myself. And then the next thing is what we just discussed. You must give yourself deadlines. Write every day, whether it's for 10 minutes or 3 hours, but write every day. I like the idea of giving yourself an hour that is just your writing time. And if you go over the hour, good for you, but sit yourself down every single day, Maybe you take off a day for faith observance or something like that. But really, make yourself do it, because it's so easy to get distracted.
Those are good tips, really good tips. And so I think that making a schedule really helps. I found that out later on, but that really helps. What is your favorite and your least favorite part of publishing?
Thus far, I have not worked with a publishing house. I have just done self-publishing. So there's you do all of the work, the marketing and et cetera. And that's just very difficult, because really you just want to write and get it out there and have people enjoy it and move on to your next project. But there's that whole business end. I have not gotten into the weeds of dealing with an actual agent and publisher, traditional publisher, et cetera. I think that that's in my future, but I want to get a couple of other things off the table, including this 3-book series, before I've done that. So that I hear is really difficult, between the rejections from publishers and agents and the amount of time it takes to secure them. And I'm not sure how easy it will be to find a fit. So that's probably the least favorite thing. And also, people think that it's just a fuzzy thing that you make up, right? When you say you're a writer. Just socially. It's like, no, really. And if you don't say that Random House has published a 5-volume set of yours, then it doesn't count.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Who do you think your book is for?
The eavesdropping books are real. They're for anybody, but they're really. What's fun about them is, because they're these snippets of conversations. They're for people who are very busy, right? Because you don't have to feel as if you've forgotten half of the novel you read because you had to put it down for 2 weeks. You pick it up when you have a little bit of time. They're also for actors. There's scenes that can be acted out when people, especially people who are acting students. There are a lot of these books out there that are scenes for actors to play and to memorize for auditions, et cetera. So they work really well for that, for acting classes, especially in schools. They are, but for anybody who reads them, you'll remember being in these situations and et cetera. They're fun. They're a lot of fun. I'm always surprised by the response I get when I would put them online, and people would be like, either they remember being in a situation or seeing one, or I'm working on the love and romance one. Will be coming out this month because we are in the month of love, and I cannot tell you how many people love those, but also a lot of women go, where are these men? Where are these men that you've been writing about? Because I need one of them.
Yeah, the written man is something else.
And mine are actually realistic, because there are real conversations that I've either overheard or been a part of, right? So very few of them are the actual made up ones. So they're like, no, these are things you've overheard. So where are these guys?
Yeah, you probably get a lot there, because I know a lot of people go, this is not real, LaShaunda. This is not real. I'm like, okay. How did you celebrate when you finished your book?
How did I celebrate when we finished this book? When we finished this book, I had COVID. So there wasn't a lot of celebrating. I was locked in our basement, quarantining. So I didn't get to celebrate. I think when we released the third one of the third and final one of this set, then I think I'll plan something with my guys. I have sons and a husband. I live surrounded by testosterone. So I think I will force my guys to celebrate with me then, since I had COVID when the first one was done.
Yeah, I'm slowly getting over COVID. I had it at the middle of January, and it's left me with this horrible cough that it just won't go away.
It does eventually. I hope it's the tail end of the cough, but yeah.
I I think this is my second bout with COVID. I got it before they were talking about it was COVID, so I didn't know it was COVID at the time. But I had that cough, and I kept that cough for about 2 months. So I know I'm going into the second month, so hopefully it'll go away. It seems like it's getting worse instead of better, but I tell you, the things that we have to do with this COVID has changed so much about us. You know.
It really has.
Writing and everything. So,
yeah. Well, I wish you well with that.
Oh, thank you. I'm just thankful I'm here. People are like, what? Why? Look.
Yeah.
So many people who aren't. So I'm just thankful to be here. I didn't have to go in the hospital. I dealt with it myself. So I'm just grateful. Was there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Now, I'm a big reader. I love to read. I'm a reading addict. I read just about everything. I'm not too into horror because I don't like to be scared. If something's scary, I have to read something light before I go to bed because I can't keep scary on my mind. So I like everything, highbrow, lowbrow, intellectual fiction, nonfiction. I'm horrible with superlatives, so I don't have favorites of anything. And I won't say that any of the authors I like inspired me to write because I wouldn't want to pretend to write as well as they do. But I think it's the fact that I have author friends who are like, go ahead and share your stories, and we're encouraging. So not necessarily the great authors of wonderful literature that I enjoy reading and being surrounded by, but really just author friends who are like, you have a voice. Go ahead and share it. I've seen what you've been doing, whether it was through these conversations or through essays, which is another project that's upcoming. It's the book of essays.
So let's talk about the anthology you were telling me about. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. It was released at the end of the year last year, so it's just been out a couple months. It's called The Parenting Odyssey, Trials, Treasures, and Triumphs of Parenting in a Pandemic. It was presented by Carol Milletta, who brought together, I think there are 15 of us authors who each wrote essays and contributed to the anthology. And really we're talking about just, we're all parents, mostly in the U.S., but also in Africa and in Europe, and just what it was like having kids home when the whole world shut down in 2020. And what was our experience? What did we do? What did we not do? Some people had young children, so there was the whole homeschooling and online school. Some people used the opportunity to start a business. Others used it to reflect on the fact that they hadn't realized until then that they hadn't seen their kids for very long because they were so busy working and keeping the machine going, right? And I have an essay in here called Sweet Sacrifices. I was one of the parents, one of the few in the anthology who had older children, so I spoke a little bit to that. But it is it's a lot of fun. I'll read you the first paragraph because they're short essays. So if I read you the whole thing, then you can't there'll be no incentive to buy the book. But it's Sweet Sacrifices, and it begins. No matter how long I sat, there was no adjusting to the unpleasant antiseptic aroma. The smell, combined with high-pitched whirring and motorized vacuum noises, comprised the sensory weapons in the pod. They were going to torture me. Just as I was planning to escape, another paper spacesuit-clad woman entered the chamber. I could tell she was the leader by the way she peered through her face shield, eyeing the gruesome implements. As she reached for a medieval probe and jumbo-sized needle, I wondered, how did I get here? That's when my brain premiered its indie film, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, the story of how Kamyra earned her first adult cavity. And I go on to talk about that and how parenting during the pandemic resulted in me getting a cavity.
A lot of snacks.
And And then some.
I ate lots of snacks during the I said the best part about the pandemic was that the Hoffman crew got their eat on. We ate whatever we wanted. You know, sometimes you're limited on what you're going to buy. I'm like, well, we're stuck in the house, we're going to eat.
Yeah.
We ate a lot, and I'm laughing because I think my son ate too much sweets too. We spent the whole end of the pandemic fixing his teeth. So I'm feeling for you.
I think dentists are doing very, very well. For us, since we have older children, and I have a cousin who's a young adult who came in and lived with us during the pandemic, so she added to our bubble. What was nice is that one of my favorite things about holidays is that we all cook, because putting it all on mama is not happening. I allowed it once or twice, and I'm like, yeah, that's very ugly. We're not doing that again. And so it's fun, and we're all in the kitchen during holidays. Well, when the world shut down in 2020, it was like a really long holiday around dinner time. Like everybody would come in and cook and stuff, or we would take turns cooking, and it was so nice and familial, and it's something that we only, we did maybe half a dozen times a year. We were doing 3 and 4 times a week. That was a plus for us. That was really lovely. So I didn't have to go through, there are people in the book talking about how all of a sudden they were doing all this cooking and stuff that they'd never done before, and how draining it was. And I was thinking, it wasn't so draining for me. I had other concerns, but cooking was not one of them.
Oh, I did tons of cooking, but everybody was ready to eat, and we ate, and so I don't mind cooking if you're going to eat. I resent cooking and you don't eat any stuff. One of the things I loved about it for me was my husband works nights, so we actually got to spend more time together because I was at home when he was up. Usually when I come home, he's in the bed, so we see each other in passing. So that was, for me, one of the best things about the COVID, other than the COVID. But just hanging out with my family and, everybody, I can't stand my family. Now, I'm not going to say that with the virtual school. That was a whole different. I found out that my social butterfly son was not a virtual school person. No, he needed to be in class. And we fought I didn't think he was going to make it through 8th grade because he did not like virtual school. He just didn't like it. And so I was like, we're going to have to repeat the 8th grade because he passed, but I don't know how. But it was an experience because I learned so much about what he liked and what he didn't like. And I thought he would thrive on the online because he's always on his computer playing games and stuff like that. But it's a whole different atmosphere when you're you're online because basically he just had to show his face and he didn't want to do that. So every day I'm in the kitchen, he's in the other room, and they're saying, I'm getting a message, Miss Hoffman, Sean is not in school today. And I'm like, what? What? And I would go in there, I was like, can you please show, he had to go in, he had to show every morning to show his face. And I don't know why that was a big problem for him, but I don't know.
It was very difficult for some students, and also your students skipped transition periods and rites of passages and appropriate developmental steps when they were going online, and then all of a sudden they were thrust. It sounds like if your son was in 8th grade, all of a sudden he's in high school and we're back in person, and he's missed some of those really crucial things that you would get in 8th grade, developmentally. Middle school is not for the meek or the weak, but it's crucial. It's important in order for us to develop and so that your teenagers can survive high school.
Right. Yeah, and it was. I was like, okay. I was like, oh my goodness, and he's not a morning person, so we've just been dealing with that over and over again. So yeah, it was an very interesting experience. I did want to ask you about writing an anthology. What tips would you offer someone who's thinking about being included in anthology? What would you tell them?
Well, if there are opportunities for you to dialogue with the other authors, be sure you do that. because then you can make sure that the book touches all different points on the subject, whatever it is. As I said, I wrote a little differently because I realized that I had older kids and a lot of people had younger ones. So that way I could give a different perspective, so that if you can have opportunities to, we do everything over Zoom these days, to meet over Zoom, to cross market. The good thing about having that many authors for one book, we're all marketing the same book. So if you cross market and tag each other and things, it helps build your individual communities, because you operate like a cohort.
I think a lot of people miss that with the anthologies. They're so busy trying to promote as a one person, when it's great, because if you are a new author, you don't really have a community, but maybe somebody inside the anthology has a community. My first anthology I did, I was trying to help promote it, and we were trying to get I think maybe it was like 25 authors, trying to get them to promote it, and they were like, I just want to put my essay in there, and that was it. I wasn't planning on doing nothing else with it. I was like, well, how do you plan on selling? Oh, I'm planning on selling. So I was like, okay. So one of the tips I always say is to know what you want to do with this anthology. You can use it to make funds. If you want to sell books, you can sell books from it. The last two that I've done were grief anthologies, and so what I decided was that I would use them as gifts, and copies of them, and give it to people who are dealing with grief, versus trying to sell them a book. Hey, I know your mother died. Would you like to buy a book? Really? So I found that sometimes I'm at some place and go, you talking about grief, and then they'll go, do you have a book? And then then you can sell something, but you know what the topic is, and it's how to approach the audience for that topic. So that's very important when you're dealing with anthologies. And I do think that getting connected with the people inside the anthology is really good, because sometimes they have other things that they might be doing and introduce you to that. So you miss that if you just focus on, I'm in an anthology and it's just me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an opportunity to grow your writing community.
Excellent advice. So what do you do to make time for yourself?
To make time? Well, when I say I'm a reading addict, I do not exaggerate. I read. Now, I never count. I know there's people who track their books on Goodreads and stuff. I don't do that. But I estimate that I read at least 125 books, full-size novel books, a year. And that is my love. So if I can, I always have a Kindle on me or something, so I can take snippets of me time to read. If I can read while soaking in the tub, that's great. I love to walk. I'm a big walker. So if I just go out and take a walk, I can clear my mind. I can listen to an audiobook if I want to, or music, or nothing, and just clear my mind and take a nice walk out. I'm not big on the extravagant me time things like spa vacations and all that other stuff, because, I'm a mom. I'm a writer mom, so we don't do that stuff as much as some other types of moms.
Yeah, we don't.
I like to take dance breaks too, to my guys' horror. I'll take a spontaneous dance break anytime, especially if you're playing Prince.
I think we are truly kindred spirits, because I dance in my kitchen.
I have a sign.
I put my music on, and I get my jam on, because one of my friends was like, you always talk about you dance in your kitchen. How come you don't dance on TikTok? I said, nobody needs to see me dancing. I dance for myself. I don't need nobody to see or have video of me dancing.
Exactly. I have a sign in our kitchen that says, "This kitchen is for dancing."
I need that sign. I need that sign here. Was there ever a time that you wanted to quit with your writing career?
So I have quit in that I've neglected it. because I have other paid jobs. I call myself a reformed fundraiser and organizational development person. So, I've been consulting for paid gigs doing that kind of work, and I have neglected my writing for large periods of time. Like most writers, I go through crises of confidence, especially there's nothing better or worse than reading a well-written book. You love it for the sheer joy of receiving it. But if you're a writer and you read a well-written book, you think, oh, my God, I'm never going to be able to do anything like that. And you just want to give up. And you have to remind yourself, I do what I do, and they do what they do. And just keep plugging along.
I love that, because that's why mine are in the closet, because I read something really good, and I'm like, it's never, oh, man, I know.
Exactly.
You're going, oh, my God, how could I? No. So, yeah, I understand that one. I really do. What are 3 things you wish you knew before you reach where you are now?
Just in life in general?
The life in general, as a writer, either way.
Okay. As a writer, I wish I knew. I wish I knew that people would receive things the way I intended it. You spend a lot of time wondering how people are going to receive something, or doubting whether they're going to get it or something, especially something like these eavesdropping books, which are not traditional stories. It's a compilation of conversations and stuff. And if you looked at traditional publishing, you'd say, oh, I'm never going to publish anything like that. Nobody wants it, and there are plenty of people around who would tell you that. I wish I had known sooner that, there are also plenty of people who will appreciate it. What else had I wish I'd known? I wish I'd known. I'm trying to think of another writing one. In life, I wish I'd known how much fun life would be the older I got, and how much I would like myself. I like myself so much more now in my 50s than I did in my 20s and 30s, when you're trying to figure it out, but also positive that everybody else knows and you don't.
That's a good one. I'm in my 50s too, and I feel more confident in my 50s than I did maybe. I think in my 20s, because I was in the military, I thought I was the it. So I had confidence. And then I kind of lost the confidence when I became a mother and wife, because you're like, am I doing this right? All the time. I was telling my daughter that, I said, it doesn't matter how much because she said something. My daughter had a baby last year, and so I'm a new grandmother, and so she was like, Mom, you do all this stuff for the baby. You didn't do that for us. And I said, when I had you guys, I was learning. I said, I know so much now that with the grandbaby, I don't have to make no mistakes. I know all the stuff now. Like when you're a new mom, you have not a clue. And she, the stuff she says, how come you know this, Mom? And I was like, because I had 3 of you. I know. I've learned that. That's it. And you get my wisdom. I didn't have nobody to come and ask questions to, I think with my mother, it was a different generation, so they did stuff differently, So it's like, and so, well, you know so much. I'm like, it just seems that way. That's good.
That's a good gig, the grandparent. That's a real good gig.
Oh, my God. I absolutely love it. I'm like, I'm glad nobody told me about it, because I probably wouldn't believe them that how much you've just fallen. I said, I can't believe I've fallen in love with this little person who's only been here 7 months, and I'm like, I love my children, but that one right there, I'm like, he's on top. It's amazing to me. So I'm like, I really hope we have a really good relationship. So sometimes, kids, you be thinking one thing and they thinking another thing. So, but I hope him and his, I call myself grand, him and his grand be best of buddies, because he's just oh my goodness, He was the best part of COVID. I tell people that all the time. He's the best part of COVID. Everything else, this little baby, he was the best part of it. I wouldn't trade it going through COVID to get to him. So, my last question for you is, where is it? Oh, man, is it? Oh, what's one thing about writing did you wish non-writers would understand?
The one thing I wish non-writers understood is also something I wish I really understood earlier, is that it's supposed to be hard. It is excruciatingly, you'd think that writers just sit down, Octavia Butler just sits down and she has this fertile imagination and she puts it all on paper, and then we get these books to last for a lifetime, which are now being turned into graphic novels and movies, right? But it's not like that. It is hard, and after you get all those first thoughts out and the first semblance of a story, all of the editing and stuff is hard, and you just have to push through it. That's part of the process, and you're not doing anything wrong.
I love that. I think that even with people who just like, oh, I'm gonna write a book, and I say, okay, and they go. And then they'll see me. I had a couple of people that lived here, and they go, I want to write a book. We sat down, we, wrote out the stuff. I got them like a little outline. And I said, well, this is what I tell them. I take 15 minutes every day and write. And you think I can write in 15 minutes? I said, well, you start with 15 minutes, and then you add on to it. And then you get into the habit of having a certain amount of time that you write every. And so, okay. And then I would, talk to them a month later. Have you wrote anything? No. After you didn't do the 15 minutes? No. Then
because they're waiting for this inspiration, and they're waiting for this block of time. And I know I've been there, but that's not how it works for everybody. Some of us have to just grab at it when we can.
Yeah, it's so funny because me and this other lady are working on putting a book on Kindle, and we were talking to another author about the Kindle platform and how everything was going and stuff. And so she calls me the next day, and she says, I want to talk to you about the Kindle. And I was like, oh, you didn't cut the Kindle juice. She said, I put my book up. I said, what? What? I put my book up. And I said, what do you mean you put your book up? It's on Kindle. And I'm like, and I'm in my head going, you've been working on this book for 3 months. You ain't did nothing. We talked to her one day, and she didn't put something up in one day. What is your problem? So in my mind, I'm thinking she's got a whole book. But a Kindle is you read a chapter by chapter, yes. So you don't get the whole book. Yes. So when I went and looked at her page, she just had the first chapter, and I could feel my body going, oh, because I felt so. I was like, oh my God, I done drove myself crazy trying to get this book together, get it together, and she goes up here and throws a whole book on there. We're just ready.
just pulled it out of thin air.
Yeah.
I heard your Clubhouse on Kindle. That was a great Clubhouse episode.
Oh, it was. I was so inspired because I was not going to do a fiction. I was just going to stick with the nonfiction, and so I had a book that I did on a nano time in last November, and I'm like, you know what? And I had like 20 chapters. It's got to be fleshed out and stuff, but I was like, I'm going to do this. And so I worked on 2 chapters, and I sent it to my editor, and she's like, and so she didn't call me, she didn't say anything, she didn't talk to me or nothing for the whole day. So I'm over here freaking out, right? I'm like, oh my God, it's horrible. She doesn't like it, And then finally I said, LaShaunda, she'll contact you when she's ready. Well, she had some incident happen that day, so she never did get a chance to look at it. So she looked at it the next day, and then she sends me this. I sent it to you, and I got this. She sent me an editing letter, and then she sent the 2 chapters back with the stuff, and she says, "And you do all the stuff I tell you to do. You can post it up this weekend." And I'm like, what? I'm freaking out over here. I'm like, what? So she's like, oh, you got to look at it? Have you looked at it? Have you read over it? I'm like, no, I got to psych myself up to go to that point yet, And so I had told myself I wanted to post it today. And then I had a whole bunch of other things to do, and I was like, I know I'm not going to be able to do it. I need to be able to sit down and go through everything she said. And so I said, Sunday is my day. I'm going to do it Sunday. I said, so tomorrow I don't have anything on the plan. So when I get off, that I'm going to look at the stuff to see what she says. But I keep telling myself, she put up one chapter, LaShaunda. She put up one chapter. That's all you need to do is put up one chapter, and you can work your way up. And I said, okay. I had to calm myself. I had to talk to myself. But I was like, if she put up a whole book, I'm done. I'm not doing this. I'm done. I'm moving on. But she definitely kicked me in the butt. Like, look, girl, come on. I'm gonna need you to put your stuff up here so we can get the Kindle money. And I was like, okay. But oh wow, that's something. It's hard, and because I hear people tell me that all the time. When are you gonna finish the book? When are you gonna put it out there? And I'm like, you have not a clue. It sounds easy. It sounds like, yeah, I just wrote, when people go, when is the next book? I'm like, do you know how long it took them to write that book? You try to push them into the next book? Ever ask an author that? Say, I enjoyed the book. I look forward to the next one when you do finish writing it. Not, when is the next book coming out? Freaking me out, okay? I just got out here.
Or tell them what to write. I'm on a lot of author
oh my goodness,
social media pages, and people are bold.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had a man, he told me I needed to write his book, and he wanted 70% and I get 30%, and I said, well, what are you going to do? I'm just going to tell you my story, and you just write it up and get it ready. And I was like, really, dude? And why do we want to hear your story? Because I had an interesting life. I said, then sit down and write it. Why do I have to write your story? I was doing it for free. He wasn't paying me for it. I was like, I'm having a hard time writing my own stories. I don't need your stories too. But you get that a lot. You get that a lot as a writer. They want you to write their story, and then they want you to publish their story. I got that a lot. You want to publish my story? No.
I do a lot on families, and people say, you should write about grandparents. And then I say, okay. Or for my show on Tuesdays, you should talk about, what about grandparents? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, well, you got to give me something. What were you thinking? Because I can run with something, but I need a little more.
idea. Yeah, it just popped in their head, and I just crack up when people tell you, oh, I wouldn't, or when somebody tries to criticize an author that they've never written in their life, and I'm like, keep it to yourself. If you're not what the book is about or whatever, you're just talking about, no, because you have no idea what this person has went through to get this book out here. So,
and it gives me a better appreciation for books that the stories may not be of my liking for whatever reason. It can be any number of reasons, but the book is out there. And so I always say, it doesn't matter how I feel about this story. This person has seen this project through from start to finish, and they have it out there, and it's published, and it's in your hands. So, if you don't like the story, or if you don't think it's well written or something, at least they did it. They finished that project, and that's not easy.
That's my motivation. Sometimes I read some stuff, I'm like, this made it through, really? What are you doing, LaShaunda? Get the books out the closet, because this made it through. Somebody would like it. I tell myself that when I'm like, you got to look. Oh man, I read something that I was telling somebody. Everybody was raving about this book. I downloaded on my Audible, because you got to be really good to get the Audible click. I was all excited. And every time that book came on, I slept deliciously. And I tell somebody, like, oh my God, you didn't like the book? I said, it was boring. I said the book was so boring that it put me to sleep. And so they said, did you finish? I said, I got a little bit more, and I'm get to sleep some more. I said it was great for sleeping. So I'm not mad at it. I don't even feel bad that I used my Audible for it, because it put me to sleep. But I've learned that every book isn't for everybody. So that's why I have to tell myself, you might not find, it might not be the cup of tea for somebody else, but somebody else might say, oh, I love LaShaunda's writing. I love it. And then somebody else might say, it put me to sleep. Oh, my gosh, I slept deliciously from it. And I'm okay with that now. Back in the day, I was not okay with it. But now I'm like, after reading that book, after falling asleep, I was like, come on now.
I encourage people to read the Eavesdropping. I use the conversations I say can be dream seeds. So you read a couple, and then you can think about that as you fall off to sleep, and you can seed your dreams and dream about this scenario. And it works really well for the love and romance ones.
Yep. Well, I'm looking forward to reading this. I'm going to have to go download it so I can read it. That sounds interesting. I love eavesdropping sometimes. Sometimes I pop into the conversation like I'm in it. I'm bad.
It's hard to resist, right?
That's that social butterfly in me. I'll be like, excuse me, what did you say? And they'd be like, we ain't talking to you, lady. The next thing I know, I'm talking to them. My kids used to say, Mommy, you can make friends with everybody. I'm like, that's just my nature. Well, I have enjoyed this conversation with you. I am so happy to know this is your release day, and I wish you big sales today, and people get to enjoy your book and hopefully write lots of reviews about it. How can we, the reader, the listener, get in touch with you online? Do you have a website? Are you on social media? Tell us all about it.
I do. I have a website that is tryhardmommy.com. And from there, you can get all the links to my socials. But if you look me up on the social platforms, Try Hard Mommy is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Okay. Well, thank you for being our guest today. I appreciate you. I want to thank our listeners for taking time to listen to the podcast. You know, I have my 3 questions for you. Did you learn something from this episode? If you did, please share the podcast with your community. Would you like to be a guest for an episode? Contact me at onesormeg@gmail.com. And my last question, have you promoted your book or business today? If you haven't, go showcase those wings. Someone needs what you have to offer. This is LaShaunda Hoffman, and I will see you on the next.